Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. Let's begin, as we do every class, setting the most important motivation we will ever set. And this motivation that when we actually realize bodhicitta, because that's the motivation we always say we begin with, this will put us on a direct course to becoming a Buddha. And this will allow us to go from joy to joy to joy because we will have realized what we're trying to figure out. And that's that cherishing others is the key to our happiness, and cherishing ourselves is the key to all of our suffering. And once we actually develop this mind that we're talking about so much, bodhicitta, this motivation of bodhicitta, this main mind bodhicitta, once we actually develop this mind, we'll be a bodhisattva and we will reap the benefits of what that kind of mind produces, and that's happiness. Whereas we think cherishing ourselves produces happiness, the bodhisattvas have learned through the practices that we're learning about that it makes more sense to cherish others than to cherish one's self, because that's how you achieve your happiness and all sentient beings' needs are met. So this is a really, really amazing opportunity that we have to learn these real specific steps according to a tradition that's been passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni all the way into our very fortunate laps or hands or ears, however you want to say it. And we've, been going over the various practices for generating bodhicitta for now a year and a half or so, because we got to that section in the foundation of all good qualities, or the source of all my good, it's entitled in the text that we read, that deals with aspiring bodhicitta. So it's almost like the car came to a screeching halt on that stanza, and for the last year and a half, we've been looking at all of those practices, and we're lucky to have so much information in English that's been translated, authentic information in English that's been translated that can help us along this journey of understanding the things that will be necessary for us to actually generate this mind that we say will be, the main mind we'll eventually have in dependence upon the various practices. The practices that we went over of the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment for such a long time, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Lord Maitreya and Arya Sangha and the extensive deeds lineage. And now we're looking at the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice that's passed down in the profound view lineage, from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri, Arya Nagarjuna, and down through Bodhisattva Shantideva, whose lens of the guide to the Bodhisattva way of life we're looking at through in order to understand the equalizing, exchanging self with others practice. So we're really lucky to have this information. So we've spent some time, quite a bit of time, on that 7-point cause and effect, and a little time now on equalizing, exchanging self with others. So let's put that, effort we've put in to work right now, and let's try to the best of our ability. Hopefully, it's becoming less and less completely contrived, but still contrived, because it's not a spontaneous arisal for me. Maybe it is for you. Still contrived, but not as contrived. Not as, this just sounds crazy, but I'm going to say it anyway and try to think it anyway. So let's begin with this outstanding idea, which is the highest ideal of the Mahayana according to Arya Nagarjuna, is the central pillar of the Mahayana according to Lama Tsongkhapa, and that's bodhicitta. And in the Abhisamalamkara, bodhicitta is defined by Lord Maitreya as the altruistic intention to achieve the highest enlightenment for the sake or for the benefit of all sentient beings. So let's Let's think, wow, what would it be like if everything that we did in our lives was this for the sake of others? If all of our practices were for the sake of others, if I would want to become a Buddha, which is so hard to become, it needs so many sophisticated causes and so much sophisticated effort. Imagine thinking that I want to do that for the sake of others. I'm going to put in all that hard work for you and you and you and you and everyone in the universe without having any kind of bias. So that humongous mind doesn't just come out of nowhere. And we can pretend that we kind of feel like that until somebody gives us a hard time. But that humongous mind is present even when someone's giving you a hard time if you're a bodhisattva. And that hard time actually brings pleasure to the bodhisattva because it invokes compassion, which is a mind of ease, as opposed to anger, which is a mind of unease, which is an affliction. And affliction is a mental factor, the presence of which there causes a disturbance of the mind. Many of you have heard that a few times who are studying with Geshe Damdul. The presence of which disturbs our mind. The presence of compassion doesn't disturb our mind. Now, there are kinds of compassion that we have mixed with attachment. It can make us feel bad. But the kind of compassion that the bodhisattva has isn't mixed with that attachment in the way that it has that disturbance. It's only a pleasure. So that sounds, even to me still, like a really hard thing to swallow or to believe could happen, where I could feel pleasure when I would normally be very disturbed. But it's about just changing our discrimination when we look at the five omnipresent mental factors and how we, make decisions about everything and move towards and away from everything in our day. We see that it's that discrimination of beings and not seeing them as lovable and as a mother would their only child that keeps us from being happy and keeps us from having an understanding at the time of them having a difficult time or reacting in a negative way. It keeps us from having like, oh, I understand you're in samsara, you have self-grasping ignorance, you're like me. It keeps us from that. So let's try to set this motivation right now to the best of our ability and say, I'm attending this teaching this evening to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I must become a bodhisattva to become a Buddha. I'm learning how to become a bodhisattva. We've gone over the stages already of the teaching shared in common with small and medium capacity, and I know I have to realize those to become a bodhisattva. I know that I have to have the foundation of renunciation, a desire to definitely emerge from this horrible thing called cyclic existence if I want you to emerge. If I decide that your parts are more important than my parts in terms of taking care of them, I need to already know that your parts are under a serious, serious danger called cyclic existence and are going and are disintegrating moment by moment and only heading towards more suffering, more suffering, more suffering of change. And of course, if we're in cyclic existence, the ever present pervasive conditioned suffering. So here we are today, with the opportunity to stop that cycle for ourselves and then learn how to stop that cycle for all sentient beings. To know that they're in the same condition that we are. But we must know the condition that we're in if we want to have any kind of feeling of urgency in terms of helping others and a feeling of urgency in terms of wanting to become a Buddha because of recognizing the unreliability of being a sentient being and knowing that a Buddha can truly, truly benefit those beings who are stuck, that you've decided day and night that you want to unstick, um, and that decision brings you to a conclusion that you can't unstick them because you're stuck. And even if you become unstuck and achieve an abiding nirvana, you won't have the capacity to help everyone. So it becomes urgent that you become a Buddha when we study this, and that is the point. The Bodhisattva feels the sense of urgency about becoming a Buddha because he or she knows of the limited capacity they have to help sentient beings as a non-Buddha. Bodhisattvas are great, but compared to a Buddha who's omniscient, it's just there's no comparison in the ability to help and locate all the beings that need to be helped. So this is the kind of being that we're wanting to become, a being who knows everything and knows everything. Why? Because the Buddha needs to in order to help everyone. And that knowing of everyone, everything, and the helping of everyone can occur simultaneously for a Buddha. Whereas we have trouble helping people who are 10 feet away from us. So this is the realization when we get right before we realize bodhicitta in both of the practices we're talking about. There's something called altruism, this extraordinary attitude where you say, I'm going to take it upon myself the task of freeing each and every one of these beings, and I'm going to bring them to Buddhahood. And then there's the recognition of the inability to do so, the handicap, the unreliability that makes you know the goal, and the only goal that's important then is to become a Buddha. So let's say that that's why we're here tonight, because this is a Mahayana teaching that will teach us exactly how to transform our minds into a Buddha. And why settle for anything less? Why settle, even though the teachings show us how to achieve less? Why would we ever want to try to, from the outset, from the start, aim at achievement of less? Let's aim at the highest achievement we possibly can. And then it's like putting our kind of motivation imprints that give rise to concordant causes into our minds, into, that our I will carry to my next life. Let's put those imprints that will say that, yeah, everything that I'm partaking in, during this teaching, minimally, hopefully after this teaching as well, but everything that I'm doing here, everything that I'm hearing, I want that to kind of go towards this flow towards Buddhahood. So this is the reason we're setting the motivation. The great Kadampa masters say there's two times that are important, the beginning and the end. The beginning, setting a proper motivation, and the end, making a proper dedication. The motivation in the beginning is bodhicitta, that's the highest ideal. The highest ideal would be, I'm doing this in order to become a Buddha. And the best dedication is, may all of this stuff that I've done cause me to become a Buddha. So that we are putting it into the right fund. If we're looking at it in terms of like spiritual wampum, we joke a lot. We want to make sure that that spiritual wampum goes into the right fund that will grow into the Buddha. So that fund that the I carries is one that will bring you to Buddhahood. Whereas if it's not properly dedicated, that fund could purchase you perhaps a nice house and some your merit, right? So you have money that comes and you have a nice house and maybe have like nice cupcakes and, crepes and things like this. But you don't want that, like, that collection to go to that. You want the collection to go to really something specific. It's like when you put money into a savings account that's specifically to go towards, a college fund. Well, here we're putting our virtue and our merit into a specific place when we dedicate that will be only used for becoming a Buddha. We don't want it used for other things. And we might, as a byproduct, have a really beautiful surroundings because that will help us be generous and help us do things that will make us become a Buddha. But it won't be wasted with something mundane if we dedicate it properly. And if we have the right motivation, it's leaving the imprint in our mind that, hey, this is what we're doing this for. And it also perks up our kind of hearing a little bit, and because it tells us from an intentions perspective, this is really important. I better listen up because this is the most important thing I can ever hear. Because all I've ever wanted was happiness, and all I've ever wanted to be was to be free from suffering. And I've never been able to achieve either of those two things on a permanent basis. And here I'm learning how to achieve those two things on a permanent basis because samsara has no beginning but has an end. Nirvana has a beginning and has no end. So it will be an impermanent happiness, but it won't end. It doesn't mean it's permanent. But when I say that it will be something that will last, it means that it won't go away. But nirvana will go on. It will be this. The cessation is permanent. It's difficult to talk about this, but this like you being happy is impermanent, and that will go on, and that's an impermanent phenomena that will never come to an end. That doesn't mean it's permanent. Your cessation of suffering, your nirvana, is permanent because it won't come back. It's a phenomena that is not undergoing momentary change at all. It won't. It's not something that's a product. It's something that is a phenomena that exists because a separation has occurred. Another big debate topic. So this impermanence of happiness won't end. Whereas our happiness is contaminated, so we call it the suffering of change. Because it's bait that we think, oh, this will never end. And then it changes into the suffering of suffering. So these are the kinds of things that we're learning how to do here. And it's in a logical way, not in a way that, oh, if we pray to this being, then we can achieve nirvana. Or if I have faith in the Dalai Lama, I don't have to do anything else except sit back with that faith and do some mantras. Unfortunately, that will not serve us to get rid of the self-grasping ignorance. That faith will serve as a cooperative condition for us to be able to enhance our studies, get understand things quicker. The foundation of all of our good qualities is the Lama. The Lama will know exactly how to explain it to us, what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and so forth. But we have to do the work. We have to study. We have to find out what bodhicitta is. We have to find out what self-grasping ignorance is. And we have to get one of those, and that's bodhicitta, and change one of those, and that's the self-grasping ignorance. We have to change the self-grasping ignorance into wisdom, ignorance to wisdom, the wisdom that's in direct opposition with the ignorance. And this bodhicitta, right now, we don't have because there's something else we have to change, and that's the self-cherishing attitude that's causing us again and again and again to be mistaken about ways to be happy. So again, we set this motivation of bodhicitta. Let's imagine that the merit fields in the space in front of us, all those beings who've achieved what we're trying to achieve, who come into this world to show us how to discover what they've discovered. Imagine they're looking at us. We're trying to generate this idea of bodhicitta. And when you get bodhicitta, you become a bodhisattva. And one of the measures of that is that you're looking at every single sentient being the way that a mother would her only child, with intense love and compassion, without any kind of attachment. Just this love that says, I want you to be happy. I want you to be free from suffering. I want you to have the highest happiness of Buddhahood. And when you get that, you will naturally never suffer again. So it's a being who only has this one thing in mind for us, and that is our forever happiness and our forever not suffering. So if you've been around any of these kinds of beings and you've looked into their eye even for a moment, you'll know what I'm talking about. The way they look at you like everything's okay, and that they understand, and that I'm here to help. This idea, I'm only here to help. I'm not here to do anything else but help. So imagine that those beings are here, Buddha Shakyamuni, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Chenrezig in our world, your personal lamas, imagining Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, Geshe Lobsang Gonpo Rinpoche, Demo Rinpoche, Geshe Lobsang Gyatso, Khensur Lobsang Gyatso Rinpoche, imagining them all in the space in front of us. Beautiful beings like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Ling Rinpoche, all those incredibly enlightened beings who we owe such a deep gratitude to. Imagining the immeasurable Geshe Dorji Damdula in the space in front of us, and imagining Umse Geshe Agha and Gen Jeffrey Hopkins, Gen Palden Drapa Rinpoche, and Geshe Yeshe Tapke Rinpoche, all of these great masters that we have in our world. I'm saying these names, you can look them up. You can look up Geshe Dorje Damdul, Geshe Dorje Damdula at the Tibet House in New Delhi. And Umsala Geshe Agha is the chanting master for Drepung Loseling in South India. And Geshe Yeshe Tapke is in Drepung Loseling in Texas. And just is giving incredible teachings on the precious garland with an incredible translator, Katrina. We're really fortunate to have these teachers. And Gen Palden Drapa Rinpoche, uh, Gen Yeshe Tapke Rinpoche, I think is 96 or 97. Gen Palden Drapa Rinpoche is 94. And he's like the scholar of Scott Madhyamaka scholars in Drepung Loseling, one of Geshe Dorje Damdula's teachers. I remember him when I was in Loseling in 2000, helping everyone with debate and Madhyamaka and always being there at all the beginning churas. So yeah, we're fortunate to have these beings. So imagine beings like those beings in the space in front of us, imagining them inseparable from the deity. Now imagine we invite every single sentient being here to be our guest. We said, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And we'll call them in a way that they can hear. Let's set this motivation like we always do with the King of Prayers. So I thought, why don't we recite this now while we invite all sentient beings to be our guests? Because then they'll be able to understand us and they'll be able to know what we're saying. In the future, we'll really be able to do it, but we're now imagining that we have this actual ability that we will have when we're a Buddha. And that is to be able to help every single sentient being to discover this truth of suchness in whatever way they need to be guided at their own individual aptitudes in their own individual languages. So let's recite the King of Prayers, not the whole King of Prayers, the stanza from the King of Prayers we start with many times, which says that may I be able to, in the language of all beings, pronounce this Dharma. And that's really what the Buddhas are doing for us and always doing for us, even though we don't know they're doing it for us. So let's have a mental basis that starts to get more flexible and more comfortable with the idea that we can eventually speak to every single sentient being in the universe and help them learn how to be free from suffering, help them learn how to achieve the highest amount of happiness. So first we'll recite this, and as we're reciting this, imagine that you're inviting every single sentient being here, friends, neutrals or strangers, enemies. Imagine every single sentient being is invited here to learn whatever it is they need to learn to move closer to Buddhahood. In the language of the gods, Nagas, and Yakshas, in the language of the demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. How nice it would be if we had that ability, right? If we were so advanced that we knew exactly what to say to people and when to say it and how to say it. If we had this ability where we weren't so handicapped, it would be amazing. So many times in life, we don't know how to help. We don't know what to do, and it causes so much frustration. Imagine if there was just no frustration. There was only the knowing what to do. Always knowing. Just pure, spontaneous, effortless helping without any question of this the right helping or is that the right helping? Is this the right Dharma to say or is that the right Dharma to say? None of that. Knowing exactly the right thing. Imagine that. And imagine that having that feeling when you have the not sad part of compassion and love where you intensely want someone to be happy and want them to be free from suffering because you find them so lovable. Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing that our minds could do this, and amazing that we have little tidbits in our minds now to prove it right, to prove to us on various occasions that if we could only harness the way I felt when I had so much love and compassion and bottle it, man, or that the parents when they have their child and they're looking at it, if they could harness that and bottle that, wow. But you can harness that and you can expand that and you can make it much bigger than that feeling that we can relate to in this life with experiences like that because you can multiply it times 2 times 3 times 4 times infinite number of beings, a countable number of beings, but not a number we can count, only a Buddha can count. So imagine being able to be capped out in bliss at all times, capped out because your bliss is dependent upon others and you've got everyone in the universe as your object of observation. Your mind's flowing to every single being in the universe. It's not stuck in any way. It's not getting hung up on behaviors or getting hung up on annoyances. I find myself so much, can get hung up on, why are they doing it that way? Or hung up on, oh, if they only, just hung up and not even knowing in any way that what I'm hung up on is like thinking someone should do something a certain way is even helpful for them at all. So it's interesting to see how I can be so sure in my mind folks need things, but I don't have a bit of clairvoyance. My compassion comes and goes, I don't have this constant flow of compassion. And my ignorance is so deep that I can see so clearly that the capacity just isn't there. So anyway, let's imagine now that all beings are here. They're here to hear what we're here to hear: how to be happy, how to be free from suffering, how to be reliable, how to stop not knowing what to do. All those things. They're all here to do that. How to figure out a way to convince those who are so violent that the opposite is true. Imagine trying to convince some folks that you know that are so violent. Like right now, okay, ready, go, convince. Someone who's just has such violent, mean, you've known mean people, right? Mean people. Now imagine, okay, ready, go. Say the right thing to them that's going to help them just change a little bit. That's not going to make them angrier. That's not going to make them hit you. Oh, wow. Rinpoche used to say, Amo. Yeah. It's because we don't know. We don't have the tool set. Um, we don't have, you know, all those realizations that are required and all those things out of the way that need to be out of the way. I need to get myself out of the way to get to you. And when I don't get myself out of the way, I'm mixing me into what I think you need. Um, and I'm not really looking at you at all. So this is something that's really important when we study mind training and we start to try to evolve. We see the things in our minds that are not evolved and we try to work on them and we're honest about them instead of just pretending that they're not there. And then when we're honest about them, we have an actual target. We have a target to fire at, and we have something to see if it's coming up again and coming up again. Then we hit the target, like in the 8 verses for training the mind. As soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, firmly facing and avert it. You know, these ideas that, oh, I'm going to tell them that someone that they need to do this, and being so sure of it. Without being so sure, if you know what I mean. So imagining now all sentient beings are here, all the Buddhas are in the space in front of us. And now, with that being said, Let's imagine that the space in front of us transforms into Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain in India. Imagine that we're right there at the time of the Buddha when the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge was being taught. We're right there. Imagine Buddha Shakyamuni is in meditative equipoise and is now starting a show for us to see, a puppet show, if you will. Um, a puppet show where he takes over the minds of Venerable Shariputra and Noble Avalokiteshvara and has them conduct a conversation about the nature of reality, about emptiness. And it's interesting because it says you see that Arya Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, while practicing the profound Vajraparamita, he saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. So he's seeing that the five skandhas are empty of intrinsic existence. And when someone who is ordinary is realizing ultimate reality, they're not working with their conventional mind. They're only realizing what the mind of ultimate analysis realizes, and that's a non-finding. It's a mere negation. It's a mere non-affirming negative that's realized, a non-finding of intrinsic existence. So when beings who aren't Buddhas are doing that, realizing that, they can't then do other stuff at the same time. You can realize that, or you can do other stuff at the same time. And when I say realize that, I mean realizing emptiness, because it's the mind of ultimate analysis that's doing that. It's the mind of conventional analysis that is doing the other stuff, the other stuff. So it's this mind of ultimate analysis that concludes that there is not a finding of intrinsic existence. So that's all that's going on in the mind of a sentient being. That or conventional reality, like this stuff that's around us, that, microphones, and not just emptiness. So the meditative equipoise on emptiness is just you're either conceptually realizing it and you're, realizing it through a generic image, and the generic image is the same exact thing in terms of the emptiness that the thing you realize when it's not a generic image is, and that's mere negation, a non-affirming negative, a non-finding of intrinsic existence, nothing else. So a Buddha, though, on the other hand, can do two things at once. The Buddha can realize ultimate truths, and simultaneously, the mind of ultimate analysis realizes conventional truth. So it becomes a mind of ultimate analysis realizing conventional truth. And this isn't something that anyone else can do but a Buddha. So there's the reason that this is interesting, and we say there's a puppet show going on, is Arya Avalokiteshvara is seeing emptiness. Now he's suddenly talking to Shariputra. Was it after he saw emptiness? So the story goes that the whole thing is a play that the Buddha's taken over the minds of Venerable Shariputra and Noble Avalokiteshvara and is having them conduct this discussion about the lack of intrinsic existence. And the second turning of the wheel of Dharma is the actual definitive teaching that the Buddha gave. The Buddha meant what he said when he said that there's a mode of existence that's accurate, there's a mode of existence that's inaccurate, and you only believe in the inaccurate one. And you don't know anything about the accurate one. And in order to figure out the accurate one, you will have to engage in ultimate analysis and then figure out how to harmonize what you find out with the fact that karma still works and that virtue causes happiness, non-virtue causes suffering. And that if you string a guitar, if you strum a guitar, it will make a sound. If you don't strum a guitar, it won't make a sound. Cause and effect is very infallible, and we have to figure out how this very fragile conventional existence that we have to figure out, this very fragile thing, um, is still functioning just fine in a subjective way, other than an objective way, because previously, before we did ultimate analysis, we thought everything existed from its own side, ourselves, other beings, and everything else. So when we subject it to ultimate analysis and then come out of the ultimate analysis and go, huh, I just figured out that intrinsic existence doesn't exist, but here's all this stuff and karma works, there's a harmony of subjectivity that takes place. There's a subjective existence, a mode of existence that's subjective instead of a mode of existence that's objective. A mode of existence that is dependent origination, a dependent origination that's merely imputed in dependence upon a collection, if it's a person among the four or five aggregates, that serve as a basis of designation, or if it's a microphone, like all the different parts of the microphone, and the causes and everything that came together to make this basis of designation that in dependence upon, I merely impute as a microphone. Um, yeah. So anyway, it seems like we're all talking about microphones these days. I heard Khensur Rinpoche talking about Rato Khensur Rinpoche talking about microphones last night at the Tibet Center. So it seems like we're all talking about the parts and naming of the microphones. So anyway, the Buddha came to tell us that this mode of existence that we think exists is what causes us to be so sad, so worried, and nuts all of the time. Um, the fact that we think things exist from their own side and we grasp at them in that way. We feel that they have characteristics that exist from their own side that are intrinsically one way or another. And we have feelings about those characteristics. And we think that, oh, that's intrinsically wonderful. That makes me feel good. That's intrinsically bad. That makes me feel bad. And when I feel good, I want it. And when I feel bad, I want it to get the hell away from me. And when I feel neutral about it, it's just sitting there, intrinsically existent over there, appearing that way to me, ready for me to make a decision about it, having qualities that it doesn't have. And all the while, I'm going about my life from a false premise about myself and everything around me. And that starting point where I start from, I think that I intrinsically exist. And then I think that if I intrinsically exist, I'm more important than anyone else because I'm me. And then it's off to the races. So if we want to undo these things that are so natural to us that we don't even know exist, we need a lot of information to help us learn how to undo these wrong ways of thinking. And this is why the Buddha came to our world to tell us that we don't have to be sad, we don't have to be worried, we don't have to suffer all the time, we don't have to not know how to help people. We just right now don't know those things because we haven't applied the information that the Buddha came to tell us to apply if we want those things. If we want, to get rid of suffering and we want happiness that never ends. So with that being said, let's recite the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, imagining that we're there watching the play, watching the Buddha's puppet show, learning about how things don't intrinsically exist, but knowing that things exist. The Buddha said, phenomena exist. We have to know that phenomena exist, that objects exist, but it's the way they exist that we've got to rework in our minds. And if we can rework that, then the other messy things that come out of it, the inappropriate thinking, the inappropriate attention, the attachment, the hatred, the jealousy, all of those things that come out of it, and then the karma that we create because of the actions that we do that come from those awful, awful afflictions. If we can, you know, figure out how to stop the cycle at the beginning, then the samsara doesn't happen. But if we don't stop the cycle at the beginning, then it just causes the inappropriate thinking and the attachments and then the karmas that we do based on how we think about the things. And then more samsara, more samsara, more samsara. So, anyway, with that being said, let's imagine that we're there and we'll recite the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way, saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu. No ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable true complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te atom gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Ah. Kala bene jo damba ne ngushe du ju nga yi du do jen ju baba lama yi bu shen zi ne zong gan ro so la sha tse lo aga samara ja chan da da samara de ga samara aga samara ja chan da da samara ya be te ata on ga te para sang ga te budi zo a baba gon chu san ji ga yi de bi do ji she lo do ji me ba do ji she wa do ji da gi ba ji me de me she dan ji she den go ye zo a ge ren do ja ji she wa da me do ne be jen dan do wa dan dong ba dong ji bon so so ji da ji de dan jan ja Tashi de John den da de le jo. And another interesting point, when we say in the language of all beings, the Buddha also, when we look at this idea of teaching to scope or aptitude, the Buddha knew that he, at the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge teaching time, could just say, ah. And some beings were going to realize emptiness by hearing that because of whatever specific aptitude they had. Now, imagine me thinking, well, if that's the case, then I'm just going to teach ah. No, we have to know exactly what the student's mind is like, and that's why it's important to be a Buddha if we really want to help. I always say this, that I'm doing the best I can to provide information that's been helpful to me, and do it in a fashion that's in the order of the Lam Rim. But in terms of if that's exactly what's helpful for you, I know that the stages in the Lam Rim are the stages that any being needs to go through in order to take their mind from a wherever to Buddhahood. But yeah, who's to say exactly within that very big spectrum of teachings exactly which ones the right ones are. So anyway, I'm just try to do my best to share what Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche did with all of us and share it in the fashion that he did in the order of operation in terms of the Lam Rim uh, and so forth. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of add that it's not just about, oh, all those poor beings that are, in those lower realms and so forth. We're talking about highly advanced beings also, highly, highly advanced beings that the Buddha knows how to get. Maybe a being is like a half an hour away from Buddhahood or something like that and knows exactly what needs to be said. In the case of Ah, obviously you're not halfway away from Buddhahood if you haven't realized emptiness yet. That's not what I'm saying, but the Buddha would know if what to say to somebody who's a half hour away from Buddhahood. And they need something in that half hour, specific. The Buddha would know what to say to that person. Whereas I, would say, who knows, right? Who knows what you would need? So now let's do the mandala offering as a request for the teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas, high wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanjay Chodan Zoji Jonan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jipe Sonan Ji Drola Benja Sanjay Drubasho Sanjay Chodan Zoji Jonan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jushe Jipe Sonan Ji Drola Benja Sanjay Drubasho Sanjay Chodan Zoji Jonan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jushe Jipe Sonan Ji Drola Benja Sanjay Drubasho I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Now let's read the foundation of all good qualities before we get started here. Um, we're so lucky to have had these teachings from Rinpoche over and over again um, on this. I just found another commentary on the source of all my good by Kuna Lama Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama's teacher, on bodhicitta. I got a small book called The Teachings of Tibet. I haven't read it yet, so I'm not suggesting this. I'm just excited that I found right before class a commentary in a book, a very short one, by Kuna Lama Rinpoche on this text that I didn't know I even had. So it was a great joy to find that. So I will read it. It's short. I just didn't get a chance before class to read it and see what other kind of nuggets are in there to help me be able to move my mind closer to bodhicitta, to be able to make my mind closer to renunciation, my mind closer to calm abiding, my mind closer to understanding emptiness. That's what it's all about for me. There's no other goal or career I have in mind. I think Buddhism as a career is maybe the worst idea. Buddhism as a goal to become a Buddha is a great idea. If, as a kind of a byproduct, you just end up, you know, with some sort of career. But I think Buddhism as this is going to be my career is kind of hard for some reason. It seems to me that it clouds things a little bit, a tiny bit. For me, Buddhism is so I can become a Buddha. I'm talking to you because I want to become a Buddha. Um, you know, I don't even know if I'm helping you. I have no idea. So yeah, the source of all my good. And Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche taught this so much. Remember, 10 years straight, he taught the Lamrim Chemo, which this is a summary of. And then taught this poem at least 5, 6 times that I can remember in detail. Maybe more, maybe even more. Yeah. Source of all my good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first. And this, my Lord, just be careful with that word. It means like the highest. J means highest, like the highest thing, the kindest, highest thing. Lord, like J, like king, lord, like J, like yeah, it's just like be careful with this word Lord because of our connotation within the Western connotation of my Lord. It's not what it means. It means like the source of everything that I want to achieve is learning from a competent teacher. The competent teacher is the source of me becoming a Buddha because a competent teacher can teach me how to become a Buddha, how to discover Buddhahood. So someone who can help me to discover Buddhahood is the highest kind of person. So this is why this J is there, this Lord. They're the like, this is the greatest kind of person that I can think of. Someone who could do that, help me to discover something that I can't discover for myself. I need a little help, and then I'll discover it myself, but I need the help from the teacher. And bless me to see that taking myself to them in the proper way is the very root of the path. Taking myself, finding a teacher, it's the root of the path because that's where it begins, where I begin to learn exactly what I need to do to change my damaged mind into an undamaged mind. So taking myself in the proper way to the proper teacher with a proper motivation, it isn't always the easiest thing to just have happen. So bless me to have this occur. And then once this occurs, serve and follow that teacher with every strength and reverence that I have. Because I know that they have something to offer me that's more incredible than anything anyone has to offer me in the world. In the universe, they have the most important thing in the universe to offer me, and that's the way to discover nirvana, and specifically a non-abiding nirvana, the way to discover that. And I don't have to, have somebody throw water at me. I have to think about this thing enough to change my mind into the mind of a Buddha. It's not like this mind is lacking anything in terms of potential. It's just lacking the qualities that a Buddha has. But the that's lacking something can have additions put into it. If I'm not as compassionate as I'd like to be, I can grow that compassion with these practices. If I don't want to get out of cyclic existence, I can learn about cyclic existence so that I get a fire under my ass to get out. This is what it's about. It's that simple. It's as simple as I have a messed up mind and all the things I've tried to unmess it haven't worked, and all the things I've done to try to be happy haven't worked, and I've never been able to stay happy, and I've never been able to stay out of suffering. None of those things have worked. None of those things have brought me to that place. Whereas here, a teacher can teach me how to get to that place, how to actually create the causes instead of the ones I'm creating that aren't giving me the results I want, how to create the causes for the results I actually want. So, wouldn't I want to follow that person who has that to offer with everything that I've got? And when it says follow, what am I? I'm not following them around, I'm following them to hear so I can hear them say stuff. If I'm not near them, they can't say stuff to me. It's very logical. Yeah. Following with all my strength and reverence. Like I'm really going to try hard to hear these teachings, to be able to change, to be able to get to where I want to be. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life I found just this once is ever so far defined and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first to recall the death that will destroy me soon and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done and the white or black and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Bless me to receive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They can't be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of liberation. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality, the pratamoksha vows, the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, every one my own mother, has fallen into, and grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. May I become a Buddha to free all sentient beings from suffering and bring them to Buddhahood. That's what that's saying. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I can't become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, the union of calm abiding and special insight. One which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Grant that once I practice well the path shared and become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest door to come inside for the fortunate and good. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, the cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then always to keep them, even if it costs my life. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Grant me then to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the four times highest that there is. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now and stop and end forever. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path, and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. Okay, so I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. And we know, we talked about a little last week that we figured that out when we were studying the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity. We figured out that we have an enormous amount of suffering, many sufferings we don't even regard as suffering. Hold on, I'm proving I'm not a robot. Bear with me. Apparently, humans proving they're not robots is harder than it looks. But I'm definitely not a robot, and I'm definitely not AI, and I'm definitely not reading all of this from anywhere. I don't have a prompter in front of me. I've heard all of these things, by the way. Yeah, I don't, none of that's happening. Um, but so we learned that I've slipped and fallen in the sea of the suffering life. And we learned in the Lam Rim about sufferings we didn't even know were sufferings. We didn't even know that our happiness is actually suffering, that our happy feelings are actually suffering. They're actually bait that keeps us in cyclic existence. They're actually honey on top of a razor blade that we're licking. That's actually my more favorite one. Is the it's like the happiness of samsara is just like the honey just smeared over the top of a razor blade, and we're just licking it. You get that sweetness at first, and then it changes to the suffering of suffering. You get that sweetness, then it changes to the suffering of suffering. And we learned about the eight sufferings: the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, meeting with the unpleasant, separating from the pleasant, not getting what you want, the suffering of the appropriated aggregates. We learned about these things that are horrifying about cyclic existence, that we do know are suffering. It's pretty clear that our body and our mind suffer, and that we have these things. The mechanism behind it's not clear, and the thrusting, through samsara isn't clear. But some of those eight sufferings are so clear. And then the uncertainties that we learn about, the six sufferings, the uncertainty of samsara. And we use that uncertainty during this to recognize that, friends become enemies, enemies become friends. In our future lives, obviously, but even in this life, we see friends become enemies, enemies become friends, neutrals become friends, neutrals become enemies. And it's kind of how when I say neutral, like, when I said in regards to emptiness and inappropriate attention, how I have a neutral feeling about things. I have a neutral feeling about strangers, but at any moment I'm ready to make them an enemy or a friend. I'm so ready to change my mind. My perspective is very fickle, Yeah. I'm willing to say, I love you. And then I'm willing to say, I hate you. And then I'm willing to say, I don't even know who you are. I disregard you. Get over here. I love you. This is how our mind is able to be such a messed up mind. And we learn about in the six sufferings this first thing about the uncertainty of cyclic existence. And it says, even in this short lifespan, there's a quote from a sutra that says, we see all of these changes in relationships. And in our future lives, we talked about with these changes in the relationships and the disgustingness that will occur if we could really know, if we were eating meat, who that being was, if we could flash to when they were our mother, and when they were caring for us so greatly, how that would be and how disgusting that would be as we take the bite of that burger or whatever it is, and we're biting into our mom. Yeah, how disgusting, right? If we really, really know. So we learn about this disgustingness and uncertainty of samsara and our ability to change our perspective so quickly, and learning about having to take on rebirths and shucking off bodies and going from the high all the way down to the low, and meanwhile never being satisfied. Does any of this sound familiar? Maybe not the being thrust into bodies, but sickness, aging, death, separating from the pleasant, meeting with the unpleasant, not getting what you want, the suffering of your mind, the suffering of your body. Yeah. And then we talk about more subtle things, the uncertainty of your future life and your relationships now, and the but insatiability. Are you satisfied at all? Completely satisfied, and ever completely, where you don't have something bad happening to you soon, or your friend or loved one soon. That uncertainty, that dissatisfaction, rebirth after rebirth, shucking this body, I'll shuck off this thing that I name as mine, that came from someone's parts that aren't mine, that I just decided are mine. I shuck off. That's how important it is, and I get thrust into something else. This suffering that everybody's undergoing, of going to high and going to the low, being in hell and then being a god, and all the while we're thinking we're those beings intrinsically as those beings all the while. And when we start to know, oh my gosh, this is true about all of us. At the time of death, I will go alone. Everyone will go alone, just like me. That we learn in the six sufferings, that when no one can go with us to our death, it will be just us alone. We will have to go. As we've shucked off this body, we'll go alone. And everyone has to shuck off a body and go alone. Ninji, compassion. This is how we build our compassion. We start to see we're all in this mess, and we all have one problem. We have one real problem that's causing us to suffer, and that's called self-grasping ignorance. Really, at the root of everything, we have this self-grasping ignorance that thinks that I intrinsically exist, you intrinsically exist, everything intrinsically exists. This idea. And then the three sufferings, of course, suffering of change, and pervasive compounded suffering. We see sentient beings suffering, having sufferings among the three types of suffering when we look at the object of compassion. Compassion has as its object sentient beings who are experiencing among the three types of suffering. And those three types of suffering cover everything. They cover all the happy, contaminated feelings that are suffering. They cover the suffering of suffering stuff. They cover the fact that you're thrust, without any kind of independence, any say in the matter, into aggregates over and over again. Just thrust, thrust, thrust. And then you're like, oh, this is me. I'm so important. I'm more important than anyone else. Shuck the body and thrust into another one. So this is what's going on with us. This is what's going on with all sentient beings. I'm in the samsara. Just like me, every living being is. And every living being has been my mother. We learned about that in the 7-point cause and effect. We've learned to see all of these beings as lovable when we do this practice. So it's saying everyone's my mother. So we're seeing every being as lovable with this practice. That's the point we're trying to get to. Seeing every being in the universe as lovable, and seeing them as you would whoever it is who took care of you when you were vulnerable, you would see as the most loving, caring person. You would see that every single being has cared for you in that way, and you love them. And just like You love yourself, right? You want to not have suffering. When you love someone else, you want them not to have suffering. So the change in perspective of the obsession with ourself takes place when we go from the medium scope to the great scope. Because the medium scope, you're pretty obsessed with yourself. Like, okay, I know everybody's suffering. I don't want them to suffer, but I can't do anything about it. I'm heading to a personal liberation. I'm going to an abiding nirvana. I'm going to have my blinders on. I'll help whoever's in front of me when I can and do that. But really, I'm going, you know, to an abiding nirvana to be able to get rid of the afflictive obstructions, and nothing I can do about it. So we're changing this perspective, that's even at the subtle level, the subtle self-cherishing that an arhat would still have in an abiding nirvana. We're changing it so our mind can't do that, so our mind can't disregard, so our mind can't put blinders on. And that's what we're talking about now. We're talking about mind training. We're talking about changing, changing our mind's perspective, from one that stinks and makes us suffer to a perspective that will make us happy and go from joy to joy to joy to joy to joy. And while we're joying, we're helping. Um, and wouldn't that just be so fantastic? So we recognize that every single sentient being that's lovable has the predicament, has this terrible, terrible predicament, 8 sufferings, 3 sufferings, 6 sufferings that we have. And then we're saying, may the Lama, but bless me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Meaning, I want this. I want to transform my magnificent potential. That's what bless me means. It means allow me to transform my magnificent potential. I have the potential to be a bodhisattva. I'm not now. May I be encouraged. May I be guided in a way to transform my magnificent potential. So that's what blessing means. Blessing is you have a magnificent potential that can be transformed. Yes, this magnificent potential, transforming this magnificence. So it's saying, may I become a bodhisattva. May I transform. I have this potential to be one. May I actually become one. When do I become one? When I actually generate bodhicitta. And I have it day and night, just as when you generate renunciation, you have it day and night. When you generate bodhicitta, you go from renunciation day and night, wanting to get yourself out, to bodhicitta, day and night, wanting to get everyone out. And so this is the big old mind that we're trying to generate. And so let's talk a little bit about the Lamrim Chemo. Let's read what Lama Tsongkhapa has to say. Lama Tsongkhapa was talking to us about the ability to change your perspective and saying, hey, you've already decided some friends were no good and called them your enemy. You've already decided some of your enemies, they're pretty nice, and you call them your friend. And you've already made decisions about strangers where you've said, you know what? I no longer disregard them. I don't like them. Or I no longer disregard them. I love them. So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying we've done this. We've reversed, thinking about people before. And the way we've done it is through familiarization. Familiarizing our mind with a different way of thinking about that person than we did previously. So Lama Tsongkhapa is pointing out that, hey, you've already done this. So it's great. You're an expert at this. So let's start from there. So it doesn't even give you a minute to argue. And then gives this idea that, okay, and I'm going to tell you, even though you're going to come at me and say it makes no sense to take care of somebody else because they're not you, somebody else's body because it's not yours. Lama Tsongkhapa I'm going to just say to you, like, you're used to doing that because, like, you were thrust from the intermediate state, your consciousness, into this union of your mother and father's, blood, semen, egg, that was this clump of gooey stuff that came together that then your consciousness was pushed into. That material wasn't yours, but through habituation, you just decided it was and called it yours. Because you, through habituation of thinking, in previous lives became so habituated that you were willing to take these material parts that grow that are not from you. You're in the bardo. You're not it's your mom and dad's physical stuff that came together. There's consciousness here. There's not the physical stuff here. There's not that physicality here. There's a light body going through the intermediate state. Now suddenly a light body that's not this material like will form this stuff gets thrown into something that's not yours and you say it's mine. So Lama Tsongkhapa said, don't worry, you've done that before too. You've been totally willing to take care of somebody's parts that aren't yours. So then Lama Tsongkhapa just opens this and says like, okay, so you'll have the ability to do this because you just have to accustom yourself differently. And then the next part is Lama Tsongkhapa saying there's a couple of things that will keep you from being able to do this. There's a couple of categorical differentiations you make about yourself and other that are keeping you from really being able to make this practice work at all. And it's interesting because Lama Tsongkhapa begins with kind of explaining the emptiness, the lack of intrinsic difference between self and other. That the self and other, we don't have this intrinsic difference. We can't say there's an intrinsically existent self, intrinsically existent other. Um, so we start with this loosening of our idea that I'm intrinsically existent and you're intrinsically existent. So I am me and you are other. I and other are merely imputed independence upon a collection that serves as a basis of designation. The mountain is over there is just the perspective of somebody imputing it independence upon a collection that serves as a basis of designation of mountain over there. But if you walk over there, you say the mountain that's here, independence upon the basis of designation, this imputing mind, the person, the perspective, merely imputing, the mountain's here, independence upon a collection that serves as a basis of designation. So Lama Tsongkhapa is going to get into how not intrinsically existing gives you less of a reason to cherish yourself more than others. And yeah, so let's get into this a little bit. I'll read for about 5 or 6 minutes. So Lama Tsongkhapa points out when we say exchanging self with others, I'm not meditating and thinking I'm you. I'm changing my perspective. I'm me still, but I'm just more focused on you than me. This is the difference. A lot of people teach this wrong. They teach it like, okay, so I'm just going to pretend I'm you. No, I'm going to pretend that your needs are mine. It's a shift in perspective Lama Tsongkhapa wants us to know. It's not like we're imagining like deity yoga and I'm imagining I'm Lorinda. No. I'm imagining that Lorinda's needs are more important than my needs. Yeah. That's the thing that's switching. And that the way that I disregard a stranger's needs, I'm going to disregard mine and I'm going to consider that stranger as important as my needs now. This is a big, big, big shift. This is what we're talking about doing. So we've got to convince ourselves with this information that, first of all, it's possible, but then that it makes sense because it sounds illogical. It's raining outside. Let me give you an umbrella and then I'll be dry. It just doesn't make sense to a mind that is so fixated on me, 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 me. And to be able to get out of the box of that perspective takes so much information for people like me. So let's read about this. So we make a category. There's a couple of obstacles Lama Tsongkhapa says to us gaining an attitude of exchanging self with other. A lot of the mind training texts don't start with emptiness. So when they teach equalizing and exchanging self with others, they teach the emptiness later. But Khensur Rinpoche always taught the emptiness first, the way that Lama Tsongkhapa does. But you see, Pabonka Rinpoche does the emptiness later in the special insight and doesn't mention it in the beginning in terms of the importance of the equality of self and other. There's no emptiness that's really talked about, but we see a primer for emptiness right here in Lama Tsongkhapa's text. Okay, number one, here's something that's going to keep you from not, okay, it's what's going to keep you from not being a bodhisattva? First, you make a categorical differentiation between people who are happy or suffering, yourself and others, making them as different as yellow and blue. Then you accomplish your happiness and remove your suffering because you think of them as mine and neglect others' happiness and suffering because you think of them as belonging to others. You don't see any kind of interdependence here. There's no interdependence here because here we're going to find out that this thought is coming from the self-grasping ignorance that thinks that I intrinsically exist and other intrinsically exist. And there's an intrinsic difference between self and other. But we're going to find out that I'm other to you. And it's not like, blue isn't blue to some people and blue to others, right? So Lama Tsongkhapa is going to bring that up. I don't mean if you have color blindness. We're just saying blue. Like blue's blue to you and blue to me and blue to everybody who's validly cognizing blue. But self and other, that's a little tricky because, I'm self to me, but from your perspective, I'm other. So it's not like blue, but I think it's like blue. I don't think that there's any kind of flexibility, in me. I feel that I'm solid, concrete, intrinsically existent me, and you're solid, concrete, intrinsically existent you. And rarely do I ever see any dependence I have on everyone. And if I have dependence, I can't have intrinsic existence. You see how emptiness starts to come into play here, where it loosens the ignorant mind that is the helper of the self-cherishing attitude. They're buddies, big buds. Okay, so then you accomplish your happiness and you think that, okay, my happiness is mine intrinsically and your happiness belongs to you. Therefore, the remedy for this is to not make this categorical distinction between self and other as essentially different, intrinsically different. Self and other are different entities. You and I are not the same entity. This is not saying I'm you, you're me. Lama Tsongkhapa already told us we're not doing that. What it's saying is that the mode of existence that appears to me and about me and you is wrong. So it makes my ability to do this practice very much hindered. Therefore, the remedy is to not make this distinction. Rather, understand that self and other are mutually dependent, such that when you are aware of self, you are aware of other. Because if there was no other, I would be everything. So for me to think, oh, it's me, I have to think for me to think I am me, it is independence upon me not being other than me. And if there wasn't this interdependence, then me would be everything. You see what I'm saying? I would be everything. There wouldn't be this other that then gave me a frame of reference of me. Okay, so self and others are mutually dependent, such that when you are aware of self, you're aware of other. And when you are aware of other, you are aware of self. It's like being aware of near mountains and distant mountains. For example, relative to your being there, you think a mountain there is in the distance. You think of a mountain there in the distance as being a distant mountain. Yet when you go to the distant mountain, you think of it as a near mountain. Okay, so you're naming it based on a perspective differently. It doesn't intrinsically exist as a near mountain or a far mountain. It's merely a perspective of the person. So the awareness of self and other is not like the awareness of a color. For regardless of what color blue is related to, you are aware of just blue and not aware of some other color. So that it doesn't, blue is blue. It doesn't become like, oh, I'm self in relation to me, but other to you. So I'm two? Am I self or am I other? That's the whole point that it's getting at. Which is it? So, and this some way will help. It sounds now like, oh, how is this going to possibly help me be more compassionate? So the awareness of self and other is not like the awareness of a color, for regardless of what color blue is related to, you are aware of just blue and are not aware of some other color. Bodhisattva Shantideva in the Compendium of Training says. By becoming accustomed to the equality of self and other, the spirit of enlightenment becomes firm. Self and other are interdependent, like this side and other side of a mountain. They are false, meaning there is no intrinsically existent this side or that side, meaning that's a false in terms of veiled truth, conventional truth. It doesn't exist as that way from its own side. That's what false means here. Falsity in terms of veiled truth, deceptive truth, conventional truth. There is no real conventional truth. There's unreal, real conventional truth, as the tenet systems say. This is hairy, little difficult, but all this we will need to know. The other bank is not in itself other in relation to someone else. It is this bank. Similarly, self does not exist in its own right in relation to something else. It's other. Thus, Shantideva indicates that self and other are merely posited in relation to a particular reference point and do not intrinsically exist. Yeah. So let's stop there. I know I read that last time, but we'll read it probably another time after this because this is a very, very important point that's being made here. And if I'm grasping at myself as being intrinsically existent and I'm so sure of it, then me taking care of myself before I take care of you makes sense. It makes sense. If I don't depend on, if I'm some sort of self arisen entity able to hold myself up, and that everything that I grasp at or that I want intrinsically is the way that it is, and only that way, then it makes sense for me to behave the way that I do. But when I find out that it's not the case that things are the way that they seem, then I realize that you don't realize they're things in the right way either. And then it means that both of us are kind of screwed up. And I have now learned that I'm screwed up and you haven't. And that's how compassion starts. So, anyway, we'll end here. Thank you all for listening. And yeah, I hope that we can get through this material and someone can jump up and say, it happened. Oh, you probably can't tell us though if you become a bodhisattva. But anyway, so thank you again for listening. We'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and for particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Zandrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I made, I apologize. I didn't knowingly make them, but it's possible I'm not bodhisattva, even close to a bodhisattva or a Buddha. So may it be purified with this mantra. Om benza sato samaya mena balaya benza sato sinapajita dida me vasu lugay me vasu bugay me va anuragta me va savasiri me pracha savakama sucha me kidam shayan kuru hum ha ha bhagavan savatata kata benza ma me maka benza bhava ma samaya safa om fe. Jorama, Jorama, Jodorama, Junjo Kala Rajama, Rama Wajadaja, Junjo Rulu, Hongjo Hong. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samanta Bhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors to traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Through this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead every being without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. In all my lives, may I never be separated from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then quickly the place where I become myself the one who holds the diamond. From my two collections, as vast as space, that I have massed from working at this practice for a great length of time, May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and help for beings, all powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso. Please remain until samsara ends. And a prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche. Many of us had him as our teacher. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khensur Geshe Wangdak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Lord Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. Teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that your teachers all passed away and understood this sadness in treating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. The spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It's by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. And may all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness so they know who you really are. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great week and practice these teachings. See you around.